What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Obviously, but first, I do have to tell you about my friends at Zone Pouches. This product contains nicotine, and nicotine is an addictive chemical. Underage sale prohibited. And if you're as competitive as I am, you're always looking for something to help you stay dialed in. That's what I need to do on these Monday night games. I throw in one. I was talking to my scouting buddies. They say they always have one in when they're, scouting and evaluating these draft picks. So if you're looking for one, maybe a mint flavor, I need to order some dragon fruits online. And not to mention that they come with 20 pouches per can versus 15 that the other guys provide. So use the promo code, the number 3 and out 20 on NicoKick.com for 20% off at checkout. I think today was tough if you are a Sam Darnold stan because you go, does he have a big game problem? My big question mark coming out of the Seattle-LA game is Sam Darnold not good in big games, or do the Rams just own him? Because the Rams played him in the playoffs, punked him, and today they picked him off 4 times. And these weren't like random balls tipped, flying in the air that happened a couple times against the Cardinals the previous week ago. These are guys picking it off in stride. Like Sam Darnold hitting them in the numbers. Today was pretty rough. And I think if I'm a Seattle fan, I just go, listen, our coach is elite at what he does. Their defense is fantastic. They held Matt Stafford to under 150 yards. One of the touchdowns was because Darnold, his first pick, led to an immediate touchdown. The Seattle defense is elite, and that's Mike McDonald's baby. I believe in Kubiak, and I don't put this because I've seen this with Ryan Grubb, I've seen this with Kevin O'Connell. I've seen this with Kubiak. Like, this might be a Darnold issue. And I do think it's a good lesson for McDonald of like, I might have to coach up my offensive coordinator to have a different plan of attack with Sam in some of these bigger games. Because I do think for the first time this year, kind of that alert went off. That went, oof. Because he was hitting guys on the Rams. It was just, like I told Coward, they like sped him up, but also like slowed him down. Like he just kind of felt lost. And years ago, he had the famous "I'm seeing ghosts." It just felt like he wasn't comfortable. He still made some big plays. He still threw for 280 yards. But you throw 4 interceptions, you 100% deserve to lose. And honestly, I have no clue how they had a chance to win it at the end of the game. It honestly speaks to how complete of a team this is. If Sam Darnold just throws 2 picks and 2 touchdowns, I mean, Seattle might win by 15 points. So it really, he's the reason they lose. Now, he's also been the reason they've won some games. So I'm not trying to just crush the guy, but I do think we have to acknowledge some of these bigger games. I don't know if he's more amped up coming in. I don't know if he felt the pressure. Because let's face it, it doesn't get much bigger than this. You have the same record. You're playing for the division. You already have a divisional loss. They don't. It's on the road. This is a team that knocked you out of the playoffs last year, even though a lot of these guys, obviously, on your new team weren't a part of that. But, like, this is a big deal to Darnold, and he failed. I mean, he was bad. And the difference in the game is, like, Stafford, who historically has thrown some interceptions, did not. So I just think on the bright side, if you're Seattle, your coach, I think, is like the equal right there with McVay and Kyle. I think he's excellent. The problem is just the quarterback. It's just something to monitor. Not writing the guy off. Not saying he can never win a big game. But in our short sample size, since he's become a good player starting in 2024, the Lions, the Rams playoff game, and then the Rams game this year did not go well. And this went really bad. And I also think McVay's guy, Shula, as defensive coordinator, kind of has some serious ownage on Sam. Whatever they are doing is completely throwing him off. Because the other thing is, the Rams' defensive backfield is not good. Mac Jones threw for 650 yards against them this year. Has annihilated them through the air. Hell, Darnold threw for 280 yards. But he's putting guys in positions, and maybe it's the pass rush as well, that Sam's just throwing it to them 4 times. And three of them were about the one Tebow one where he like jumps in the air to do like the jump pass. So he might as well just hand it to the defensive back. It was a rough day for Sam. So congrats to the Rams. That was a massive win. Sean McVay. I love Seattle in that spot. Now, if you would have told me that Darnold would have thrown four interceptions, I would have said I bet the Rams win by 20 points. So it's still stunning. I'm pacing around the office as Sam gets the ball at the 1 yard line and is driving them down to midfield. I don't quite know the clock operator in LA. That feels like it should be at 00. He's like double pumping and he gets it to who'd he throw it to? Shaheed. It felt like that was more than 5 seconds, but they still had a shot for a game-winning field goal, and it was just wide right. I do think at this point, when you look at the schedule, that Denver should be the #1 seed. You know, the Colts play the Chiefs this upcoming week. They still have to play the Texans. I do think Denver is just in the driver's seat. They got the Commanders coming up. They got the Raiders. They're going to be 11-2 with a ton of momentum. And their defense, speaking of the Eagles, you know, the Eagles had Jalen Phillips. Like, oh, they got some great edge pressure. The Denver Broncos are on pace to break the sack record in the history of the NFL. It feels like every guy on their defensive line could just play like the 9 technique way over the tight end and just rush off the edge, defensive tackles included. When you have a defensive line that every guy feels like they have the speed of the defensive, like a defensive end, you know you're cooking with gas. The Broncos had that with Peyton Manning when they had DeMarcus Ware, when they had Von Miller, obviously two Hall of Famers coming off the edge. They had Malik Jackson, who was a fantastic interior pass rusher, who played at the speed like an end. Same thing with Derek Wolfe. And it was like when those 4 guys were on, you had no shot. That's how this group feels, with just elite DB play, and obviously Surtain's going to come back, and just a mentality of just team speed. You're like, this thing jumps off the tape. And massive, massive win. I mean, there was a moment when Kelsey scored where you thought, this is going to be an elite Chiefs victory on the road in Denver against this defense. Travis feels like the best game he's had in a couple years. What just a gut check victory. And then Bo Nix, multiple big 3rd downs, a big 2nd and 8 that basically sealed the game. And unlike the Raider game, and unlike the Eagle game, and unlike some of these games Bo Nix has played, where through quarters he's skipping balls, and it's like his feet are all off. He just doesn't look comfortable. Today, even in his incompletions, like he looked much more comfortable. Doesn't mean he's not going to have negative plays, but he looked like a different player than the guy that we saw, 10 days ago against the Raiders, where he was just all over the map and balls were flying up, down, and all around. It was like, this is not a sustainable way to play quarterback. Today was. And obviously in a big spot, in a tie game against, they're technically not the defending champs, but to the Broncos, they might as well be. I mean, you're playing a team that has won your division for 7 or 8 straight years. They've gone to 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls. They're the fucking Kansas City Chiefs. And even I think they mentioned this on the broadcast. Like, Sean Payton's been talking about this team since the moment he took this job. They're the big bad wolf. They're the team you're chasing. And they're the team that, last year they had an opportunity to beat this team and the field goal got blocked. And the Chiefs were incredible in these 1-score games. And still this year, like at the end of the day, the downfall of this team, and I think right now, I was looking at their schedule earlier today, like they'll probably end up going 10-7. But the downfall of them was blowing the game to the Chargers, definitely the game to the Jags. Like if I told you at the beginning of the year, the Chiefs are going to go 12-5. One of their losses, you would have been, I could see them losing on the road to Denver. Like, this is one of those you're doing win-loss game. And I say, hey, they win 12 games. This might be one of the games where you put an L next to it. This is not a bad loss. Losing on a last-second field goal to the best defense, to a team in your division on the road, not that weird. The problem is when you have dropped some of these weird games throughout the season, this game really bites you in the ass. And then you look up and you got the Jags just curb stomping the Chargers, like that's a little problematic. But I don't view the Chiefs like as a bad team. They just like the thing that went for them last year, all the one score games, is now working against them. And they got into a spot where it was must win in the middle of November on the road at Denver. Now, must win to win the division. They're not going to win the division this year. And to me, it's like they've won it a bunch of years in a row and they've earned it. Right? I mean, they've been a dominant team. And this year, like, this is not going to happen. I'll tell you this, though. If they're the 7 seed, that sucks for the 2 seed. Not saying that they won't lose in the first round, but that would not be the first team. Like, meanwhile, the 7 seed in the NFC is going to be the 49ers with absolutely nobody on defense, or like the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams, who are just winning the wildest games you've ever seen against not good teams. So I just think, and that's not to, I'm not shitting on the Bears here, but props to the Denver Broncos. That was a massive, massive win. Today's show is brought to you by our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. We talk a lot of football here on 3 and Out, but there's always something to bet on. The NBA, college hoops, hockey, sports are going full swing right now. When you sign up with Hard Rock Bet today, you could score $150 in bonus bets. You just have to place a $5 wager, and if it hits, you not only get your winnings, but you also get $150 in bonus bets. Hard Rock Sportsbook app is the only legal sportsbook whenever you're in Florida. And it's also live in Arizona, Ohio, New Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, Colorado, and coming soon from more states near you. Plus, Hard Rock Bet offers new promos every single day. So whenever you're listening, just open the app and check out what you've got on any given day of the week. Download the Hard Rock Bet app today and make your first deposit. I wrote down, why do bad teams stay bad? And I have 3 different examples here. I'm going to start with the Atlanta Falcons, who I was out on again this year. Now, I never believed that they were going to be this bad, because I do think there's a chance that they're like 4-13. They have a chance now to completely unravel. It could get really, really ugly. Reports today that Michael Penix might have re-tore his ACL, which I think would be on either knee, because he's torn them both, would be the second time on a knee, and would obviously be out for this season, and it would impact his offseason, and it would be his 4th season-ending injury. I think in the last year was in the last 8 years. So 4 season-ending injuries in 8 years. And I was texting around to some NFL buddies today, and I obviously like Michael Penix coming out. I was a Michael Penix fan. Most of my friends in the NFL were not. They did not view him as a first-round pick. I'm texting around today. He thought, a buddy of mine, that there were several draft boards where he just would have been off based on injuries alone. When you play 6 years in college, and 3 of those, actually I think 4 of those, because a couple were like shoulders, that you can't finish the season, alarms and red flags go off. And some of that's, predicated on what the doctors are telling you. But that gives teams, that scares teams, because guys with a lot of injury history, even though the past doesn't always predict the future, teams get very rattled by that. And obviously a lot of teams did not view him highly like the Falcons did. But the Falcons had a stretch where they signed Kirk Cousins and drafted this guy in basically 30 days. And it has destroyed their franchise because, one, Cousins signings, one of the worst in recent memories. And Penix, even before he was injured, I think we have to acknowledge, has not been a very good player. So when you ruin the quarterback position and you're kind of cocky about it, it's going to get you in trouble. I do think Atlanta, the craziest part, and this saddens me to say, is their downfall is actually benefiting the Los Angeles Rams. And I do think there had to be a moment in the draft room where Sean McVay, who's, I think, I don't know if it was best man in his wedding, but one of his best friends is Raheem Morris. When they got on the phone with Les Snead and the Rams and said, we will offer you a 2026 first-round pick for James Pierce. And the Rams should have said, Raheem, we can't let you do that. That is, we would fire you for doing that. So we just, as your good friend, we would advise you to rethink this idea. And they did not do that. And they took their first round pick. And right now, the Rams, a day after beating Seattle in first place in the NFC West and looking like a team, I mean, if they play like they did yesterday, would have a chance to win the Super Bowl, also own the eighth pick in the draft as we sit here on November 17th. Let me repeat, the Los Angeles Rams own the eighth pick in the draft. But here's the thing. How are the Atlanta Falcons going to win any games? We saw Kirk Cousins earlier this season. It's completely over. Penix is gone. Drake London is now banged up. They are screwed. So and now their defense isn't good. I mean, Bryce Young just threw for like 700 yards against them in an overtime victory. I think the Atlanta Falcons are a great example. You know, you look around the NFL, even like a team like the Lions right now that have a bad loss, or the Packers that have got, they are in such a different universe than teams like Atlanta. Like I will just, if these were all stocks, you would just short Atlanta every single year. And that move that they made, trading a future first round pick, trading up from the 30s to the 20s, whether I agree or disagree with taking Travis Hunter number 2 overall because you think he can be a two-way player, even though no one's ever been a two-way player, and that includes his former coach, who is the greatest athlete arguably of all time in the NFL and could just sparingly play on offense. It's at least you're going from 5 to 2. Like that's the cost of doing business. When you trade back into the 20s to give a future first round pick, it is honestly like some of the most reckless draft behavior we have ever seen. And it blew up in their face like immediately. If I just think if you're the Rams, you're kind of downplaying it, but I mean, you got that in your back pocket. Les Snead is sending his scouts, like scouting all the real high end guys. You know, typically, you're watching whoever, the quote unquote, the Caleb Downs or the defensive lineman from Ohio State or Miami, and you run into someone like the Eagles or the Ravens or the Chiefs. Like you're not drafting these guys. Les Snead's like top scouts just standing right next to the dudes from the Giants and the Titans. Like, yeah, might get this guy too. It's like it's just got to be an incredible feeling right now for Les Snead that was always F them picks, and now he's going to have a top 10 pick. Pretty insane. And speaking of why teams or bad teams stay bad, the New York Jets, I saw a headline today that Tyrod Taylor will be their starting quarterback this year. I saw one of the New York Jets, I think it might have been Rich Cimini, who's the beat reporter, covers the team closely for ESPN. He tweeted out some numbers that said if this offseason the Jets cut Justin Fields, so the dead money they will have from that contract, and if you combine that with the dead money that they will have for Aaron Rodgers' contract next year in 2026, will combine for $57 million in dead cap. Somewhat understand the Aaron Rodgers thing. We probably all would have made the Aaron Rodgers trade. He gave them, remember, a massive discount when he redid his contract. It kind of is what it is. That was a move that 99% of people would have made given their options, and it blew up in their face. The Justin Fields move did not need to happen. They did not need to do that. Why? Because we all knew that he's not a very good quarterback. Great guy. Unreal athlete. Awful quarterback. And you're benching a guy that you gave. It's one thing. Listen, sometimes, we gave this guy 1 year, $10 million to be the backup, and he wasn't any good. It's happened to Andy Dalton before. Flacco, I know he's kind of good now. A couple years ago, he wasn't that good. Like sometimes you give backups 1 year, $7 million, and he's just not any good. To give this guy 2 years, $40 million is about as crazy as you get, in the free agent market. It really is. And this, you look at the Jets, you look at the Falcons, they have no clue what they're doing when it comes to quarterback. They really do not. Remember the Falcons before Matt Ryan, like what was going on there? Obviously, Michael Vick went to jail, but like they drafted Michael Vick number 1 overall. They don't know what they're doing. And if you look since, it's like they've had Desmond Ridder, give Cousins, it's like Heineke. These franchises, bad franchises, are where quarterbacks go to die. And the Arizona Cardinals are a good example of Like Jonathan Gannon and Monty. I always screw up the guy's last name, but the GM of the Cardinals. I actually think they're not bad, but they hitched their wagon. Monty Osenfort, former Patriot guy. They hitched their wagon to a team that had Kyler Murray under one of the craziest contracts we've ever seen. I mean, the contract, they felt so good about the contract, they had to put a clause in there that he couldn't play video games, which has never happened before and will never happen again when it comes to a quarterback. And obviously, when they accepted the job, which I understand there are only 32 of them, and there aren't 32 of them because most, like the Ravens, the Chiefs, the 49ers, like a lot of these jobs don't ever come open, right? So it's really the same 10-ish jobs that kind of recycle, right? The Jets, the Giants, the Cardinals, the Jags. So you're going to hit your wagon to a bad NFL job, even though it's like not that bad. My wife's in real estate. When Jonathan Gannon bought his house uh, down, closer to Tempe, I remember Googling, or, she had all the, she has these programs like, that's pretty big mortgage he's taking out. Business must be booming. So you make a lot of money. And I think Jonathan Gannon actually is pretty solid, but the team now is just a complete disaster. They have no quarterback, right? Think about this. The guy that they inherited on a max contract got benched for Jacoby Brissett, who the last 2 weeks they've played Seattle and the 49ers, and they lost 44-22 and 41-22. And neither game was that close. Like those scores don't indicate what we witnessed. And they're all going to get fired. And it's all because they took a job with a guy on a massive contract that's not a max player. And you see this around the league. When you sign these guys to these huge contracts and they're not max players, you have immediate problems. And guys' jobs are lost. And I would say this about if all these guys get fired, and maybe the GM, kind of like the Giants, keeps their job, which is always kind of crazy, but it happens more often than both guys getting blown out. Is this a terrible gig? It really is. I mean, you're in a division with Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, and Mike McDonald. You have no chance. Your owner's a clown. I mean, he really is. The ownership has no clue. He really doesn't. Like, the best thing that could ever happen to the Arizona Cardinals would be the Bidwell family selling the team. I would say the same thing. Mark Davis's mom, Carol, who's Al's wife, just died. I would say the best thing that could ever happen to the Raiders is the same thing. Just sell the team. Look at the Buss family. Dr. Buss was extremely successful, and then he gave it to his incompetent kids, and the franchise became a laughingstock. And they got lucky. They were in a great area, and LeBron just wanted to play there. Because if LeBron didn't want to play there, this franchise over the last decade plus, and every Laker fan would acknowledge this, would have been like the Sacramento Kings. And they got really lucky that however this played out, and I've read some different articles, listened to different podcasts with the children, that they sold it to the Dodger Group because now they got a chance. They got real ownership that knows what they're doing. And I think all these places, Arthur Blank, clearly when he was younger, pretty high level business guy, made his fortune himself. But he hired the right guy once upon a time in Thomas Dimitroff. And then ever since, I don't know if it was pressure to fire him. Obviously, they had a couple bad years. And you start hiring the wrong people. The owner gets way older. He's way richer. He's just out of touch. And the franchise just falls apart. Obviously, Woody Johnson and they got no clue what they're doing. The Bidwell family, no clue what they're doing. I think Mark Davis's heart's in the right place. He's trying, but it's just the same shit every year. It's crazy. It's honestly, I feel bad for the fans.